So I have a personal take when it comes to women. I believe that women rule the world. The trick is that women have to figure out that they rule the world, and then they totally rule the world. And it's with this in mind that I absolutely love interviewing guests that are just fiery. They have this chutzpah about them. And it's with this in mind that I'd like to introduce you officially to my next guest, Yael Geffen. Hello.
Hello.
I'm so glad
What a nice intro, chutzpah. I like it.
Well, I mean, I think it's absolutely true. I have been wanting to do this with you for quite some time, so thank you for making the time to be here.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
What I wanted to do was ask you a simple question that I ask everybody, which is, for the people who don't know you, who the hell is Yael, and what is the value that you add to the world?
Who the hell is Yael? Well, I think, like you, I'm an undercover fat kid, for sure. And I've also realized that as I get older. Who is Yael? I should have watched your other interviews, so I'm more prepared for this question.
No, I purposely didn't want you to.
I know. Okay, so I think, let me start with my value. I think what I bring to the world is authenticity. And I think I bring to the world perhaps women in leadership that don't have to act like men. Often in the past, we've seen female leaders that have to become more masculine, and they overcompensate. And they are so masculine, you could literally, you think they could pee standing up. And I like to embrace my femininity. And I think that women should support women. And that's kind of where my angle is. In the past, women in high-powered positions were very competitive, and they feared each other. And if a woman lifts up another woman, we lift up humanity. So female leadership and authenticity in leadership, because I do not like the whole fake it till you make it stuff. I think it's wrong. Simon Sinek actually wrote something wonderful on one of his posts the other day, and he said you can improvise. And improvise is a very different word from fake it. So my plight is to tell people that they don't have to be fake. They can be authentic and themselves, and they have a place in the world.
I mean, it's a fascinating perspective. I was literally just about to ask you, do you think there's no place for it at all? And then you kind of shifted with the word improvise. But as a former current marketer, I've also seen that perception is 9/10 the law.
Sure.
So could we call it marketing then? You're kind of shining your space into a specific light to get taken seriously, because the market doesn't always take people seriously, either young, woman, color, whatever it is, whatever the disadvantage is. So you almost have to appear bigger than what you are or whatever to get taken seriously, for people to just see you as you are. Do you think there's no place for it, some place for it?
Okay, so I'll give you an analogy. Posturing is very necessary in certain arenas, okay? For example, if you're in the bush, and I was last week, well, not last week, last year, and we did a walk, a wildlife walk, and the game ranger said, oh, there's a black rhino, should we track it? Why we tracked a black rhino, I have no idea. That is just insane. Note to self, do not track black rhinos on game drives, on game walks. Anyway, we're walking, and we encountered this black rhino within meters, and the black rhino charged full on. I have never, I think we all, what happened in everyone's pants. Now, the game ranger right in front stood there and went, hey, 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 like that. He made himself bigger. And the rhino literally, he played chicken with the rhino. Yes. With the black rhino. The rhino literally came right at the end and then veered away. And we all thought this guy's going to be killed. Now, in that scenario, posturing or puffery is right. You're going head to head with a wild animal. But what happens, and I'm also a marketing person, and I worked in ad agencies in LA and marketing agencies in New York, so I get what you're saying. But what happens is where you build perception and you can't match it up in terms of service, or your expertise, you fall completely flat.
Yes.
Self-promotion is essential. If you're a business, if you're a person, even us. I mean, like there's pseudo-celebrities now on social media. You can be whatever you want to be. But if you're faking it, I believe that there's a bit of an insecurity leak.
Gotcha.
And I think right now, we're all experiencing COX. And when I say COX, I mean crisis of confidence, okay? So like this morning before the interview, I had a little cock myself, a little crisis of confidence. and then you talk yourself out. Some people have big cocks, some people have small, some have cocks that take them by surprise. But basically, what it is when we're feeling our crisis of confidence, we think, oh, I need to make myself feel bigger or bigger. And especially on social media, like I see people who call themselves 7-time entrepreneurs. Why do you need 7 times? You're an entrepreneur. If entrepreneur is good enough for Branson, it's good enough for you, you know?
Yes.
And I had to do a bullshit audit of myself, really. And I saw on my profile, I had activist. I'm not an activist. Nelson Mandela was an activist. You know what I mean? I'm a person that's passionate about gender-based violence. I'm strongly against that, about women and men against child abuse. But how can I call myself an activist, you know? And we call ourselves authors these days. You wrote a book, you know? What is Jeffrey Archer if everyone's a best-selling author? And I think it's about framing yourself more authentically and more honestly, because I think your authenticity quotient is really the word for 2021. We've been through a pandemic now. We're exhausted. We don't have time for rubbish. And it's the brands, for example. Spa did something amazing last year, and I hope they, I don't know them at all, actually. But I'm giving them kudos, because last year, when the smaller shops were going out of business, I don't know if you know the Spa story, but purposefully on their shelves during this pandemic, where no one was supporting the Little Lees, they took off the stock and they said, we have taken off the stock on this shelf, please go to Jack's Paint round the corner to support our local heroes.
Wow.
Now, something like that goes such a long way as a marketer, right? Because you get into people's hearts. You know, you revealing this, that you're an undercover fat kid and telling your story, you got into my heart because you were being authentic. And I guess that's the difference I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, I can totally relate to that. I think there's such a fine line. So first, I agree with everything you said. And I think there's such a fine line between...
You don't have to.
No, and I mean, I really literally do.
Okay.
I think brands, so let's separate it. As an individual, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that sometimes people struggle to be authentic because they're worried about what other people think, but I don't think they realize that when you just put whatever is happening in your life on display in a meaningful way, it gives other people permission to do the same. So I agree with that. And maybe I've been lucky in my life that that's the only way I've known. I don't want to say it another way. But I think that sometimes brands, this kind of comes to the marketing side of it, is that brands almost try to use authenticity as a strategy, which is a misnomer for me. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like we sit around the table and go, what's hot?
Authentic.
Yes, it's almost like, what's hot today? Authenticity. Let's try be more. No, it should kind of well up from within you to want to do this. So that's why I had to separate them. But fundamentally, I agree with you. So I want to take it back a step for the people who don't know who you are and what you do. Do you mind just giving like the 1-minute elevator pitch?
Sure. Okay, so I'm in property. I'm in a 3rd generational real estate family business for all my sins. It's wonderful working with family because you have those heightened, intimate moments of celebration, and then you also have those heightened moments in boardrooms. So it's definitely interesting. My grandmother was Aida Geffen, and she was the first lady of real estate back in the 50s, actually. And my father's Lou Geffen, and I vowed I would never go into real estate. I actually even left the country, and I went to live overseas for 6 years, 4 years in New York, and 2 years in LA, doing my own thing, you know, gallivanting around. And then I decided to come back and get into the family business, and that was in 2009, and I've been on the board. My brother was a director, Barak Geffen, and he passed away, and he made me his alternate director. And much to my shock and horror, I was quite good at it. And I sat on the board for a while. And then in 2017, I became the CEO of Sotheby's International Realty South Africa. So that's my current role. I'm a shareholder and that. It was quite exciting for me. And here's the thing. Okay, now we're going to do something authentic. Last year, I won Top Woman in Property for Standard Bank. I was so excited, okay? It was cool. And I think it's time we all celebrate something fun, something that's awesome that's happened to us, right? If you look on LinkedIn or whatever, this hashtag humbled, hashtag blessed, hashtag virtue signaling has got to go because you're doing the opposite.
Yes.
So when I won, I was like, awesome, I'm so excited, I'm thrilled. You know, I wasn't going to do hashtag blessed, hashtag humbled, it's rubbish. And that's what I'm saying. My plight is to ban that nonsense.
Yeah.
So that's who I am on the real estate front.
Can I go back one step quickly?
Absolutely.
What shifted for you? What was the catalyst from I don't want to be part of the family business, which is quite renowned, to I'm coming back and I'm going to get involved?
Okay, what shifted as in what led me to go back there or to want to be involved?
Want to be involved and to want to come back from living in the US for 6 years.
So it's interesting. I still regard New York City as my home. I feel like I belong there amongst the freaks and the fabulous. It's my home. The recession hit, actually, and I was let go along with 14. I went to New York and I went to LA, and then in LA, that's when that crash happened.
Yes.
And 14 of us were let go in this ad agency that I worked at. And I was one of the lucky ones because I got 2 weeks' notice. Everyone else was like, thank you, today's your last day, cheers. Yes. No CCMA, no hearings, nothing.
America, yeah.
They're like, oh, it's like the land of the brave, you know? And I was quite flattered that I got 2 weeks' notice. So I lost my job. I was in a very long relationship with a Danish American at the time. We called him the Great Dane because he was 6 foot. Well, he still is 6'6", I imagine. And I left for a visit. Actually, my best friend's father passed away, so I came to visit South Africa, and I realized that I'd found myself. I needed to be anonymous. You know, I needed to not be, oh, there's Lou Geffen's daughter. I needed to be, who's Yael? Let me go find her. And I did in the States. And it's such a gift. It's like that Baz Luhrmann song, everyone should live in New York.
Yes.
And I know you've lived in London. And it shows you the world.
Yeah.
And when I came back, I thought to myself, well, I'm here. I don't know, let me just kind of get stuck in something. And it wasn't even at that point that I thought, oh, this is my dream and this is my mission. I just kind of got stuck in the business, and I was actually the marketing person at the time. And then it just kind of evolved, you know, my leadership within the business. So I don't think it was an intentional, like, this is for me, I'm here, and I am the heir. You know what I mean? My late brother and I used to laugh all the time because when he was in this leadership position, and I was just a skivvy in marketing under him in the brand, he used to introduce himself to people. It's like, hi, I'm Barak Geffen, I'm the heir apparent. And they would say, and who are you? And I said, I'm Yael Geffen, I'm the heir not so apparent. It seems I've become apparent over time, yeah.
So how has the last 18 months been for you guys with all things pandemic concerned?
Right. So I think this is where true leadership had a space to shine.
That's what I was alluding to.
Okay, yeah. All right, thank you. We didn't plan this before, I promise you. It's the first time I met you. Okay, so for me, this was the time for leaders to really not pay lip service, but to do what's necessary. And our industry was shut down for 2 solid months. Now, some people have different points of view regarding real estate agents. Some see them as money grabbers. Some see them as real professionals, which is how I see them, and experts in their field and advisors. But our people didn't have an income. You know, this is the one profession where they're on risk. You know, and only if the house gets sold do they get commission. They don't get salaries, they don't get benefits. So we had 500 agents in crisis, and I had to lead them, and I got stuck in, and we worked 18 hours a day, and we're very lucky. We're part of a global brand, Sotheby's International Realty, which is then from Sotheby's Auction House. So we had access to everything around the world, webinars and the leadership there. And this was a time where I was in the trenches with my people, and it went a long way. And instead of being apathetic or complacent or, this lockdown fatigue, I was like, people, no, you don't have time or energy to waste. This is your moment to get going, because when it lifts, you are going to be in front. And when it lifted, I tell you, we did very well. And property industry is booming right now, thankfully, because of the pent-up demand and because of the prices. I mean, to own your first home now is cheaper than renting.
Yes.
So for first-time buyers, it's a great time. But yeah, so it was actually a great year for me as a person, as a leader. I think I entered the award show because I had the space to do it. I didn't think I'd win. And everyone was looking kind of for I hate the term, we need to come up with something else, Mark, by the end of it. But a side hustle, right? So I decided to become a feminine power coach. And I don't like that name because I think the coaching applies to men and women, but a transformational coach and in resilience and in authenticity. So I'm completing my certification this year. So for me, it was a good year, a bittersweet year. I had 2 miscarriages at the end of last year, which is, unfortunate, but you've got to kind of celebrate your wins and find meaning in the suffering. So all in all, I think it was a good year, and I'm a lot luckier than most.
Yeah, and I guess, it's a point I talk about ad nauseum around pain and suffering are precursors for growth, but you have to pick to see it that way, otherwise you become bitter. Yeah. So I think the world got a bit of a smack on its head, and it needed it. All of us needed it, and even if you did nothing or you didn't cause any of this to happen to you through no fault of your own, I think we all needed a bit of toughening up. I hated the first part of last year. But
it was so scary.
It was because we didn't know what we didn't know, and when you're, it's like 3 weeks, then it's 5 weeks, then borders are closing, then we don't know how all of this mutates. Now, a year on, we have so much more experience. It's still kind of 2020, but with lots more experience, and we're not as freaked out. We know what we can get through it, but I also don't want to be insensitive to people who really got the shit kicked out of them, and there were many lost people, genuinely lost jobs, like. If you were the breadwinner and then suddenly you lost your job, and it was a hassle to try get a new job. There were less jobs than there were people. And so it wasn't just like, just harden up and go make a plan. Like some people really fell on hard times.
Yeah.
I don't want to take that away from those people, but it was a time for reinvention. It was all the classic adages that you could come up with. Do you love South Africa?
I do. I think we have our problems, but so does every country. I mean, Trump I enjoyed immensely because he's just the most farcical character that ever walked this earth. And I enjoyed the comedy he brought to politics. I certainly don't support him, but every country, and I think you'll understand, you've lived in other countries. It's all very well when you're living in a country to say, oh, our country's so stuffed up and blah, blah, blah. But everyone has their problems. And, I love the nature aspect of our country. I'm an animal lover. I love being able to drive an hour and a half and you're in the bush. And I think our people are very resilient and very cool. I specifically love Joburgers. I think Joburgers are so warm. Cape Townians, bit clicky there. Durbanites, awesome. But part of my job has been to travel around the country to see my franchisees and my agents. And every time I travel, I'm just blown away by the beauty of this country and all the little pockets. So yes, I love South Africa. Do I like the corruption? No. Should there be corruption? Absolutely not. And I like to support that like you do. I won't call myself an activist, but I'll support it,
Yeah. And I couldn't agree with you more. And I think why I was trying to ask is because it is interesting when you've lived in other countries. I spent a year in California, so off air.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, you should have told
so
me
I really found that to be an interesting place. And then 18 months in London before COVID hit. And there are unintended consequences to everything that happens with governments. The unintended consequence, like you and I were talking about off air, for us is that we are incredibly resilient people. We tend to not see things as job titles and I'll only do this but not this. People just get on with it here.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then in 2019, I was traveling. I came back to South Africa 16 times from London. So it was amazing. I'd be in London tonight and then tomorrow morning I'm in South Africa, and you can immediately feel the difference in the warmth of our people.
Yes.
And of course we have our problems for sure. And I love the things that work in the US, specifically California, or the California that I was staying in, and New York, London. These things work.
Yes.
But there are unintended consequences for the down. Like in the UK, they've got furlough at the moment still because they're in lockdown. They can't get their people back to work. I'm generalizing,
Yeah,
but they're
there's a lot
struggling.
of red tape and bureaucracy.
And people are like, well, I'm getting 80% of my salary. Why would I go back to work? You know,
Gosh,
it's
we
almost.
should all be in London right
And
now.
so, like, it's mad. And you think that that's a good thing, but it's not. It has its
Yeah,
own unintended
it does.
consequence.
It does.
I really have loved catching up with you, and I think what we have to do is a round 2. But I want to leave you, that's your close-up camera over there, and I think what I want to do is I want to give you the opportunity to close off with a parting message or thought to the people that are watching. It can be anything and everything. So if the whole of South Africa was watching you right now on that camera, what is it that you would want to say to them? What would you want to leave them with?
No pressure. Okay, so when you're experiencing your next cock, your crisis of confidence, stay with me. The word is crisis of confidence. Just look within rather than looking outside, because you have a lot within you. And the more authentic you are and real you are and vulnerable you are and transparent you are, goes a lot further in the long run. And that's my message to you.
You know, we are definitely destined for a round 2, 3, 4, and 5.
I'd love that. Next time with maybe a little glass of wine or champagne. Yeah.
Listen, you don't have to ask me twice. I'm in.
All right.
I really wanted to just say thank you so much for being here today. And I wanted to actually get you for one last message.
Sure.
It just came to me now. That's
Okay.
And technically it's my show, so I can do whatever
You
I
can
want.
do whatever you want.
I want, you know, in the last few days we had International Women's Day, etc. So you gave a general message, but I'd love for you to leave one to the ladies. I haven't interviewed a lady in a while, and I think it would be
Okay.
great for you to leave something specifically with the ladies.
Well, I love that you call me a lady and not a girl, because I've been watching Love Island as a side for just junk. You know, when you
Yes,
need an
when
escape.
you need to switch your brain off.
Completely. It's amazing. And with my peppermint crisp, and you just like zone in to take yourself out of life. Like a few episodes in a row. And they call each other girls and boys. So thank you for calling me a lady. Okay, so for the ladies out there and the men that love them, there are 3 power blocks to our success and our self-love. So one is shame. Carrying stuff that we no longer need to carry, lack in terms of abundance or competition, thinking someone else has a better chance than me, or isolation, where you cut off from resources and you don't realize that you can ask someone to pick your kid up from school. And that has been a huge life shift for me, tackling those 3 power blocks. And if you can learn how to tackle them, and I can teach you how, if you ever want to call me, I'm available, I'm accessible, somehow I fit it all in. I would love to share with you how to tackle those power blocks, because it's changed my life, and I'm honestly the best version of myself at this moment. And I can celebrate that without sounding like an a-hole, hopefully.
Yes. I want to leave you with a parting thought.
Thank you.
It comes up very sporadically, but I have a deep love for people with flavor. You know, I think that no matter where we are, whether it be South Africa or around the world, my biggest frustration is sometimes I just want to slowly squeeze the life out of people when they just act vanilla. You know, they just follow the realm. And I think that you are the epitome of the opposite of vanilla. I think that you have this flavor and this character, and you just have this pizzazz, and I think it's your meal ticket. And I don't think that anything that's happened to you in your life, even your surname, has necessarily been by accident. I think it's just worked out. And you seem to have just grabbed it with both hands. And I think that the country, especially our country in the state that it's in, where there's so much polarization, there's so much inequality and so forth, it needs people who give a shit. And it needs people who give a shit with some flavor. like people who aren't scared to take a stand or to say it how they see it or just give a shit with flavor. So thank you for being one of those people. I have thoroughly enjoyed catching up with you.
Thank you.
And until our next time.
Maybe I'm Rocky Road. I'm a little nuts. There's vanilla, fudge, chocolate, you know.
I mean, you get to pick whichever flavor you want to be.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming through today.
It's been lovely being here. And I did forget to add that I'm also embarking because, you know, as one does in a pandemic, on a professional speaking career. So that's been quite exciting. People have reached out to me for my authenticity talk, and that's very exciting. So I just wanted to add
so they
that.
should.
Oh, thank you, darling.
Yael, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mark.
I'll chat to you
I
later.
really enjoyed this. Thank you. Cheers.